Prologue. Watsonville Independent Cinema, Watsonville, Texas. Friday evening. There! This time she was positive she'd seen another one. It had scurried out from beneath a flip-up velour seat on the back row, and now it was skulking amongst the inky shadows at the rear of the theater. The demons were especially active tonight. In fact, they had become quite the problem this side of town in the weeks following the outbreak. Despite the authorities making all the right assurances that the things were being contained at the source. They'd also advised the good people of Watsonville that there really was no need for concern, as these were only the lesser demons, and therefore more of a nuisance than anything else. Ignore them and they'd stick to their shadows. Nonetheless, it would appear that the things were in the theater, and that was most perturbing. Melissa Bracken stood in the wings and turned her attention to her boyfriend as he stepped onto the stage. She thought he looked especially tall, handsome, and confident in the spotlight, and a particularly striking figure in his rented tux. As Phil made ready to begin his introductions to the eagerly awaiting crowd, Melissa's heart pounded fast and hard in her chest, and she began to wish that she had the foresight to go pee earlier when she had the chance. Peering out from behind the movie theater's thick faux velvet maroon curtains, Melissa could see that they'd packed out the place more than was usual for a Terror Fest screening event. There was even a bunch of people standing at the back of the auditorium, which was in violation of pretty much every fire regulation she could think of. Of course, standing room would never be allowed at the franchised out-of-town multiplex, but the kind folks at the Watsonville Independent Cinema, a one-screen theater older than dirt, were grateful for any patronage they could get. All the more people to spend money on their overpriced soda and mediocre food. There was the old joke in Watsonville that if you were to call the theater and ask what time a movie started, the answer would always be, "What time can you get here?" Melissa smiled to herself at the joke and then immediately regretted having done so as she spotted the fat buffoon Jesus Longoria, in his usual front row seat, had mistakenly thought that she was smiling at him. Now the foul man was grinning up at her like he had a good chance of getting into her pants. Longoria was an opinionated, narcissistic jerk who thought he was a big something in the film community just because he'd won a few local awards and had paid some has-been porn star to appear in one of his independent feature films. Longoria tended to keep shum that he'd totally lost his ass on the movie, that he hadn't a prayer of attracting distribution for. Around $100,000 of other people's money had been swallowed up making that steaming pile of crap. And yet the man lorded it up like he was a big shot. Longoria had insisted, Melissa had personally dealt with that particularly unpleasant phone call, that this year that his entire TerraFest team got to sit in the row behind him. And there they were, every last one of them, identifiable by their baby pink t-shirts with Team Longoria emblazoned across the chest. It was as if the fat idiot was proclaiming ownership over them, whilst at the same time taking the opportunity to belittle the guys on the team by forcing them to wear pink. Longoria most likely thought he was being clever.
"Yeah, I reckon we're gonna do real well in the awards this year,"
Longoria's voice boomed out above the cacophony of chattering voices. Ostensibly, Longoria was talking to a teammate who sat in the seat behind him, but really he was addressing the entire theater. As he twisted around to talk, Longoria pulled a disgusted face and wrinkled his nose at the man in the gray hoodie who occupied the seat next to his.
"Our leading lady slept with at least 2 of the judges,"
Longoria proclaimed.
"Hell, from what I've heard about Foxy Malone, she probably slept with all of them."
A blustering guffaw.
"And at the same time."
Melissa glowered at Longoria as he paused, laughing at his own joke, just long enough to stuff his mouth with yet another of the shrimp-stuffed jalapenos he ordered from the long-suffering waitstaff. Stuffed peppers of numerous varieties were apparently something of a specialty at the theater. The guy in the gray hoodie caught Melissa's attention. He sat stock still, staring directly ahead at the stage with his hood pulled all the way up to conceal most of his features. Melissa thought she'd caught a fleeting glimpse of his face and that somehow he looked oddly familiar. But no, she checked herself. It couldn't possibly be. Not after what happened to the green crayon team.